So we're talking a little bit about how we distribute applications with Managed Play. Oh no. Battery's gone. Let's try one more time. There we go. It's alive. Cool. So obviously we talked a lot about Managed Google Play already. Why is it important? Essentially, it avoids the need for sideloading applications, which so if you allow that on devices, it increases the risk exponentially. You've seen the stats that we have for malware or potentially harmful applications. Obviously, it's a very, very, very low rate for Managed Play or Google Play overall. Quite a bit higher for sideloading applications from third parties. So we reduce a lot of risk by using Google Play. It gives you a full store that you can curate as an IT organization. So you get to decide not only what apps are available to users, but how that app store is presented. So different ways of displaying applications too, which we'll talk about. And with the fact that it integrates into Work Profile, there's no need for app wrapping. Why is that important? Essentially, if you're wrapping apps with custom encryption and custom SDKs, it limits the types of applications that you can actually deploy. You're kind of restricted in this ecosystem of third-party wrapped applications or third-party developed apps in that SDK. Obviously, with Managed Play, we give you access to any of the 1 million apps that are available in the Play Store on the consumer side. We also make it super easy for you to upload developed applications into your private managed app store or managed Google Play, which you can then put into a contained work profile. So that's private app distribution as well. It allows you to push and update and remotely configure the apps without any user interaction. So we'll talk a little bit more about app config. So application config, you've seen how it impacts applications. You've also seen how it now impacts the ability for us to deliver unique OEM configurations with OEM config. So we're really excited for the future of managed configurations and how that's going to continue to deliver very unique and compelling use cases on the application side, but also on the device feature side. When it comes to managed configurations, don't worry, I'm not going to teach you how to code in this session. I wouldn't know. But essentially, what we're highlighting here is it's super easy to create managed configurations. If you are developing applications for your customers, or you are a customer and you have internal applications, rather than having to deploy it and rely on your users to configure it or limiting it to one specific use case, using managed configurations allows you to dynamically change the user experience of the app over the air at any time. And it's super easy to build, so ignore the complexity of the code. If you're a developer, I'm sure this looks pretty simple, and we're told that it is. So I recommend to explore that as an option. Also, obviously, we've introduced the broadcasts and also the updates for the broadcast receiver. So that means that if you configure your application to listen for those broadcasts, you'll be able to trigger updates in your apps a lot faster. And you can also retrieve back information from the app to let you know whether configurations have been successful or not, and to collect those metrics from the device and be able to display them in your server-side applications. What you may not know is we also provide a wide variety of hardware for applications to integrate with. And rather handily, we have color-coded them to tell you what kinds of apps can actually integrate with these hardware components. So if it's a native and a web application, you can essentially interact with any of the hardware in blue. The hardware in green, essentially that's for native apps only. So that's a full-blown Android APK. And for the yellow one, barcode and QR, that's specific to partner applications. So things like Zebra and Honeywell, the things they're building with their devices that have barcode scanners. OEM config, obviously we've talked a lot about this today, but it's brand new, so we're excited about it, so we'll show you it again. Please look out for OEM config. Obviously we've got 3 partners here today that fully support it, Honeywell, Zebra, and Samsung. And you can start using that today as long as your EMM is up to date and supports it. So please explore it, play around with it. And that's how you're going to get new features from these device manufacturers going forward. It's unlikely that they'll continue to invest in new features outside of OEM config. We'll skip that because we talked about it. What's new with Play? Lots of exciting things. So you've heard us talk about the managed iframe. I think the iframe is kind of makes it a lot simpler for customers to deliver applications through Google Play, especially the internal applications. So now from within the EMM console, you have full visibility to search any application. You can start configuring managed configurations all within the same console. It used to be you'd have to go to a separate Google Play console to do that. So you'd have your EMM and you'd have Google Play. Now everything's in one, which is pretty cool. We added in private app publishing. So now within the EMM console, you'll see the iframe, which looks like this. You can flick between public apps, private apps, web apps, and shortcuts. And from in there, you can configure any one of those. If you do it within the iframe, there's a few unique features you get versus using the standard Google Play console. One is that you only need the APK and the title of the APK. So it's a lot simpler to upload an app. You don't need a developer account, which means you don't need to pay us $25. So we're very sad to lose the revenue, but we're very happy it enables you to upload applications more easily. You can publish applications a lot quicker. The reason for that is because an app that's uploaded through a managed iframe cannot be converted to a public application. So if you wanted to make it public, you'd need to go and get a developer account and re-upload it in that developer account. And because we know it's not going to become public, we don't need to check it as intensively for things like, does it meet our minimum API requirements? So are you targeting Android 9 already? So there's a lot more flexibility for you in what your app does and which version your app is targeting if you're uploading it through the Play iframe. Yes?
Quick question. If you are a developer developing private apps that say 20 different customers,
Yes.
you can only upload it once, right?
Yes.
Do you have to have a unique package ID for the second customer?
Yes, ideally. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So that's the path that I would suggest to go down. Yeah. And key. Yes. So private app publishing, part 2. Let's see, that's it. There we go. Sorry, it's updating bits of the image. So we also have a store layout builder. So what this means is you can customize how the end user views your corporate applications in the managed Play Store. So you can customize the order of the icons, so in priority. You can add different categories. So you might have your sales app, your marketing apps. You might have, we at Google, we have our Google built apps. We have our third-party apps all categorized differently. So you can play around with different categories to display apps in ways that benefit your users and make it easy for them to choose what apps to download. Let's see. So these are all the features of Managed Play iframe. So the brand new ones that we just called out are the private app publishing, the web apps, which we'll talk about in a moment, and store layout builder. Let's see, auto install, new place and tracks. So what you may not know is that Managed Play also offers you the ability to do alpha and beta testing with your applications. So they are called testing tracks. So this means that you can upload early pre-release versions of your applications and distribute them to specific user groups for testing without having to have a different package name and a different key. Essentially, you just say, this group of users, my alpha users, this group of users, my beta users. Once it passes through those testing tracks, you can release it out to your production users. So this hopefully makes it easier for you to manage your development lifecycle. Feedback channel we talked about. Auto install policy we also talked about earlier. So if the device is connected to Wi-Fi, you can automatically update applications. And also with Managed Play, you can push applications silently. A little bit about Play policies. So we're doing a lot with Google Play as far as how we add benefit to the users for privacy restrict applications from doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they should be doing in better ways that are less obtrusive to the end user. So an example of that in the first round of policy changes that we made fairly recently, and some of you may already be aware of this because some of your applications may have been impacted. But essentially, we are preventing applications from pulling call logs or SMS logs from devices, which they have no reason or need to do. So there's some exceptions to those policies, which obviously you probably can guess already. If there's an app that's targeting the regulated industries and they need to do call logging and SMS logging for a genuine purpose to satisfy MiFID II regulations for banks, for example, obviously they get an exception. But if it's a social media app and it's trying to scan your SMSs and call logs, obviously they have no real reason for needing to do that. A common one is when you get a verification SMS from something like WhatsApp, where you get a verification code. There's better ways to validate that code than to collect all the message information from a user. So we've got a few of the different exception types listed here. The idea here is if you're creating applications that use these cases, it's a good idea to try and get the exception early. Make sure that you can get the exception before you put all the effort into building the app out, and find out at the end of it that it doesn't meet our requirements. So our exception process is detailed on our development website. We talked a little bit about the Android 10 permission changes. So as you mentioned, checking for location in the background, we're kind of clamping down on that. Users will now be able to see when an application is checking for location, and they'll also have the option to change that permission. So if the application is looking for location and the application is not open in the foreground, they'll get notified, and then they have the option immediately from that notification to change that option to only when the application is open, or to block location notifications altogether. DPCs, yes. Good, and that's my bottom point here. So DPCs is the EMM agents, device policy controllers. They will continue to have granular location access available to them. So they fall under one of those exceptions that we're talking about. So no worries there, don't panic. Your EMMs are fine. Device identifiers, very similar. So in Android 10, we're blocking broad applications from taking device identifier information, so IMEIs and serial numbers, unless they have a legitimate enterprise use case for doing so. DPCs would be one of those, so EMM agents would still be able to gather that information, but a personal app or an app that has no real reason to do that will not. And starting in Android 10, there's MAC address randomization that's being built in. So essentially, what will happen is when a device connects to a new network, the MAC address that it displays gets randomized. That's again to protect the user privacy when connecting to hotspots or public Wi-Fi's and so on. Impersonation policy is another thing to bear in mind if you're developing apps or if you have customers developing apps. So we inspect applications not just for potentially harmful content, but impersonation is essentially meaning using other people's intellectual property inside your app. So if you're using someone's logos, someone's trademarks, someone's branding, we also have a team that needs to validate and check that and make sure that it complies properly. Obviously, there's legal reasons why you're not able to use other companies' trademarks and logos and so on. Again, ahead of developing an application and finding out that we block it because it's using your company's logos, if you have a third-party outsourced developer that's building applications for your customers, it's good for them to submit an exception request and explain that, hey, we're actually building this application on behalf of McDonald's, for example, or behalf of Nike or whatever it might be, and we're going to be using their IP and their trademarks, and they allow us to do this, and this is our proof. If you submit that to us, then obviously we can build exceptions for when the application gets uploaded. So just be aware that there is an impersonation policy. And if you're aware that applications are being developed by third parties on behalf of an organization, they need to submit for a impersonation exception. So there's a lot of flexibility for private applications. So all of these things that I mentioned around policies and impersonation and things like that, if you're uploading it through the iframe or you're uploading it to the through the APIs, you'll avoid a lot of these checks. So we don't check for impersonation on an app that's being uploaded as a private app inside the iframe. We don't check for those permission checks that we talked about, and there's no automated review of the API level that the application is targeting. Because as I mentioned, if they upload it through the iframe, we know that that app cannot be made public. So that's the big difference. Before the iframe, you'd upload it through the developer console as a private app, but it's a very quick and easy thing to convert that app to a public app, so we still go through the same checks. So iframe is a lot more better, a lot easier for customers to upload internal applications. A little bit about single sign-on. Obviously, we encourage the use of single sign-on where possible. It gives a much better user experience, especially with application config. So when you deploy an application, now you can use the managed configuration to kind of set up your single sign-on configuration. And essentially, that's a very simple flow using our AppAuth APIs. So you'll distribute that to the Android app. The Android app will automatically authenticate to the SaaS solution, and the enterprise authentication server handles the negotiation in the background. We are building a Kerberos authentication client. So this is kind of in an early testing stage. If you have a use for this that is compelling, already got a queue starting, you can actually reach out to us. We can provide you with the APK. We're open sourcing this, so it's available on GitHub already. So please register your interest with us if you're keen to do kind of a Kerberos authentication for Chrome or for other web use cases. Let us know, and we can provide you the details and the APK and all the things you need to test it out and check it. So preview versions are available today. And that's it for Managed Play best practices. Any questions? Usually this section has a lot of questions. Yes? So they will have a presence if you log into the actual Managed Play console, the broader console, but they will not be able to be converted into public apps. Yeah. Good question. I probably need to check on that. So let's touch base afterwards. I'll find out. Oh, yeah. Yes. Potentially, I think there's exception possibilities there as well for enterprise use cases where you can turn off the MAC randomization. But in general, when Android 10 launches to a device near you, or if you have a Pixel, you have it today, essentially by default, it will do MAC randomization. I'm pretty sure there will be a policy or a configuration to turn it off for enterprise use case.